Hello and welcome to the France 24 interviewer. Our guest today is Bianca Jagger. She is the founder and president of the Bianca Jagger Foundation for Human Rights. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're in Paris because the University of Sorbonne Nouvelle is awarding an honorary doctorate to Dora Maria Tellez. She is imprisoned in Nicaragua. She is accused of conspiracy against the integrity of the state. Obviously, this is an award for her, but not only.
This is a recognition of her merit, the fact that she is an extraordinary woman. But it is, I think, it is symbolic that the Sorbonne in France has recognized that it was important to bring attention to the fact that she is in prison, that she is being tortured, and that she is in isolation in El Chipote in Nicaragua, but as well that 224 other people are in prison, are being tortured, and many of them are in isolation, and without being able to receive members of the family to visit them. The last visit was they had not been to see the prisoner members of the family for more than 80 days. And in the last visit that prisoners had, the families were subjected to, they had to undress themselves, even older women, to have to do exercises, to mock them, to humiliate them before they are able to see the member of the family.
Right. What's striking with Dora Maria Tellez is that she had a big role back in the 1970s. She was a key member of the revolution that brought Daniel Ortega to power in the first time in the 1980s. He returned later on. But nevertheless, I mean, as is the case with others, it seems that Daniel Ortega is turning against his old allies because they've dared to criticize him.
I will say a few things about Dora Maria. Dora Maria was an iconic figure of the Sandinista revolution. She participated in the taking of the national palace in Nicaragua, as well with a general that was another iconic figure, who was Comandante Uno, Julio Torres, who recently died mysteriously in the jail. And Daniel Ortega is not only going after his opponents, is not going after the church, is not only going after women, after peasants, after students, after business people, but he's going against its own people, the people who saved his life, the people who supported him, because these people have denounced them, and therefore it doesn't matter what they did for him, because this is a government, this is a terrorist state. The people of Nicaragua are living in a prison. And when I talked about appealing to the international community to impose sanctions on the regime of Ortega Murillo, I'm saying that as a human rights defender who wouldn't never thought that I will do this, but because the people of Nicaragua are living in a big prison, and that we need to do everything possible, non-violent, to be able to defeat this this murderous regime, this regime that commits crimes against humanity. And for that, I'm appealing to Europe, to France, to the European Union, to the Latin American countries. I know that the US has been doing a lot to help Nicaragua, and not doing a lot because they want to take over the country like it was the case in the past. It's been very different what President Biden has been trying to do in Nicaragua. Therefore, I'm here to call upon the people of this country in France, the people of Europe, to please don't forget. I know we are a small country. I know we don't have petrol like Venezuela and other countries, but we are a country that is important from the geopolitical perspective, a country that Russia has soldiers today in Nicaragua. We do not want to see anything that resembles what happened during the Cuban crisis in Nicaragua, and that could happen again.
Right. I also wanted to mention, we learned a few days ago that well-known sociologist Oscar René Vargas, who was also a co-founder of the revolution, was also arrested while he was visiting his sister in Managua. This shows that indeed it seems that Daniel Ortega and his wife Rosario Murillo have decided to tighten the screws as much as possible, and that there's no real dialogue possible.
Absolutely. And I would like to add that Oscar René Vargas personally saved the life of Daniel Ortega. But that doesn't mean anything to a man like Daniel Ortega, who raped his stepdaughter. And that is the reason why the daughter of Rosario Murillo, and that is the reason why Rosario Murillo is today sharing power with Daniel Ortega, because she took his side rather than his daughter's side. Her daughter's side.
What do they want to do? Establish a dynasty? Maybe hand that power to one of Ortega's sons? I mean, what's the project behind them?
I think that the project at the moment is that Rosario Murillo will take over from Daniel Ortega. I don't know that it will be possible to have a dynasty in Nicaragua. The fact is that when I think the Ortega-Murillo regime look at the perspective of them abdicating power, they have not many places where they could go. They could go to Iran, they could go to Russia, they could go to Iraq, they could go to Venezuela, maybe not to Cuba, because it seems that the Cubans are not very fond of Mrs. Murillo. Perhaps they could go to Mexico. But really, the perspective is not very good, and they will face international justice, even if Nicaragua has never signed the Rome state status.
Of the International Criminal Court. I want to get to the role of the Catholic Church. The regime has vividly criticized the Church. It believes the Church took sides with the opposition during the tragic events of 2018. However, recently, the Archbishop of Managua, Mr. Leopoldo Brenes, after meeting Pope Francis, said, quote unquote, that the dialogue with the Ortega regime should never end. What is your reaction to those declarations?
My answer to Cardinal Brenes and my answer to His Holiness the Pope is that I am all for dialogue when there are real perspective and real possibilities. But one should always be very careful that when one talks about dialogue, one is not talking about complicity. Now, I have made a video, which is in my Twitter account and my Instagram, where I make an appeal to Cardinal Brenes, where I say, why, Cardinal, have you never condemned the persecution of the Catholic Church? Why, Cardinal, you have never condemned the abduction of the Bishop Rolando Alvarez, which is he's now been sequestered for more than 100 years, and that we hear he's not well and his health is not well? Why have you not condemned the priests that are in prison, the persecution of the church? And I have asked His Holiness the Pope, please, why have you not condemned the government of Daniel Ortega and Rosario Murillo? Why have you never mentioned the name of Bishop Alvarez?
You have the answer to that question.
I don't, but I make again an appeal. Please, I know that you care for those who are persecuted. I know you care so much about the people in Ukraine. I know you care so much for people throughout the world that are persecuted. Why not Nicaragua? Why not your church in Nicaragua? Why not Bishop Alvarez? What kind of dialogue can you have with a government that is committing crimes against humanity?
Last question. What do you do then? Do you impose more sanctions? Do you call for regime change in Nicaragua?
We cannot, unfortunately, call for regime change. We are not asking for weapons. We're not asking for a military takeover in the country. We know that it's not possible. The Nicaraguans had many people, have thousands, 50,000 people who died throughout the revolution and the Contra War. The Nicaraguans don't want to fight another war, to have another dictator take over. But we do appeal to the international community to impose serious sanctions, especially the European Union, economic sanctions to this regime, and also to the Latin American countries, to those who are in the left, who are hesitant, especially Mexico, to please realize that crimes against humanity are being committed in Nicaragua. We don't have oil, it is true, but we are a people who want to be free, who want to have a democracy, and who want justice in the country.
Bianca Jagger, I want to thank you very much for coming on the France 24 set. Thank you for watching this interview, and stay tuned for more news.